So I got another question about kind of high school and what to do after high school. And the question specifically is about a person who failed a test or almost failed a test and is really worried about how this is going to affect getting into university. And then also they're wondering he's wondering if he wants to go into university at all because he's sick of high school and all the stupid lame assignments that they give you that don't mean anything, and he doesn't want to just continue that on in university, but is worried if that's actually a good decision, and naturally his parents wouldn't be too excited if he didn't go to university. So about failing the test. And this is something I wish I had known in high school, but failing a test or almost failing a test or a couple of tests or a class in high school is not going to bar you from getting into any decent university. There are loads of universities out there and loads of good ones that you can get into even if you have failed a test. Um, and I know plenty of people who did not have great averages, who went to great schools. And frankly, those people tend to be a little bit more practical and um, fun loving, and universities look for that. They're not necessarily all about perfection. I mean, there are some that are going to not be as understanding or welcoming to people who don't have straight A averages, but that doesn't mean that all good schools won't let you in. And this is I initially went to a top tier school and then didn't really like it. It was a really math and science focused. It had like a really isolated campus, and I wasn't very happy there. So I technically downgraded to a university by transferring somewhere else and was much happier there. And it was still a great school. It was still really intellectually challenging. There were still really interesting people there, but I certainly wouldn't have needed straight A's to get into that school. Um, and also, in terms of thinking about going to school or failing tests or being worried about failing tests, check in with yourself and make sure that part of the reason that you're concerned about failing a test doesn't have something to do with it being a measure of what you think your value is as a human being. And I know that this is something that I learned much later on. I actually cried on my way to take a test in college because I knew I wasn't going to get an A. It was a Middle Eastern history course, and there were all of these really foreign names that I just couldn't wrap my head around all the different things that they meant, and who whether it was Muhammad Mahat who did this or Muhammad Mahat. Like, there were just too many foreign sounding names, and I knew I was going to not get an A, and I was so upset. And the reality was that it wasn't about how it was going to affect my future in the long term, even though I could fool myself and think like somehow this is going to adversely affect my entire life. It was more just that I'm a perfectionist, and that getting anything less than an A on a test like this is somehow a reflection of my overall value, that I'm not as valuable as I think I am or would like to be. And tests can do that. Tests can be tricky like that. So check in with yourself and see if you're being harder on yourself than you need to be, simply because you are thinking that this is somehow a reflection of your overall value as a person, which is not true. So you'll get into a good university even if you have a couple of failed tests. Don't worry about that. The second question is about the university. Do I even want to go through this nonsense for another 3 to 4 more years or 5 years or however long you think university will take you? Okay. A couple of things. First, I know that there's kind of a lot of murmuring around that going to university isn't worth it, and Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, they all dropped out of school and look at where they are. Which, yeah, okay. You don't necessarily need to finish university to become something amazing. But I would also say that part of the college experience, part of the university experience, is the people you come in contact with. And certainly these people that we laud with their achievements had a good group that they met. They met people. They were able to meet people through their experiences at university who helped them. And I mean, especially Mr. Zuckerberg, if he had not gone to Harvard, there wouldn't have been this campus book that inspired his creation, nor would he have been able to create the network that he needed to make it the success that it was. So while there may be some question as to the value of the learnings per se and their applicability, there's certainly some value to the network that you will find at a university if you choose well, if you pick something that really jives with your personality. Because the school is selective. There, it's not like high school where just like your slice of the neighborhood or where you are dictates who your peer group is at school. And there's a little bit more care that goes into university admission selections. So for me, in my experience, the difference between high school and university was like the difference between university and life. My high school was very small, very not small, not tiny, but kind of closed-minded, very I don't know, just it wasn't a very expensive learning place. I had a handful of teachers who were, okay, they were good. But it certainly wasn't challenging. It wasn't rigorous, and the people around me weren't stimulating or deep thinking for the most part. So university, I was able to find especially professors who really added value and shaped who I became. So if you're really worried about getting into a university and having useless assignments, if that's what you're really concerned about, look for schools that aren't really rigid on these, what are they, foundation courses that, life science 101, anything where you have to take lots and lots of 101s. There are schools out there, there are universities out there that are becoming, and I think universities in general are becoming more progressive this way in terms of being really flexible in their requirements. And I know there's a school in, like, say in Colorado, where you pick courses and you just have one course for like three weeks or 4 weeks, and you're studying things in depth, that are interesting. I was fortunate. I had enough AP credit for the most part that I skipped a lot of those 101 courses. So I was taking courses that were really specialized and really interesting to me. And I think the more that you look for a school that emphasizes that kind of depth of learning, the better off you'll be. My freshman year, had classes where I was reading primary source material and really analyzing and really thinking, and it's where I discovered that I didn't really know how to write an essay. And as intelligent as I thought I was, there were plenty of ideas and experiences and authors and researchers and intellectuals and academics that I never would have found had I just tried to muddle through on my own. So look for a university that is going to allow you to be flexible, to form your own curriculum, and to and to an extent, there is some value, even in defense of these 101 courses, there is some value in being expected to take something that's a little bit out of your comfort zone. I had I didn't test out or couldn't get out of some, I don't know, life science requirement. And I ended up being really guided at the insistence of a dean that I had to take this 100 level geology course. And it turned out, because the professor was so passionate about geology and so interested not only in his passion for geology, but kind of converting other people to be these little, freshman minds to be as interested in geology as he was, he taught with such zest and understanding that he needed to make it compelling, make it interesting. And he did. I didn't want to take this really lame sounding geology course, but it ended up being a really great memory for me. We did field trips and we went and looked at strata, and it was interesting. You came away with a new understanding of the world and life. So look for schools where the professors are really highly rated, and where there is this like flexibility, where you're not going to be in some giant survey course doing lame, stupid assignments and just taking tests. There are universities that are more focused on providing an interesting and rigorous and challenging and enlightening intellectual experience. So I would recommend that you give university a go. It's unfortunate that we don't have the culture that Europe has or that England has, where they have this kind of gap year between their version of high school and university, where you could go and kind of explore, which I think would be helpful, this kind of exploratory learning. But university can be that for you too. So yeah, that's what I have to say. Don't stress out about failing tests, and university, I promise, if you find the right one, is nowhere near as bad as high school.